Yeah, man. This was the worst game Kenny Pickett's played in a Steelers uniform. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/allsteelerstalkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Today, we are talking about a rough weekend for the city of Pittsburgh and for their hometown team, the Steelers, who fell to the 49ers 30-7 in what all around was an atrocious performance, but one that was very, very alarming for their quarterback, Kenny Pickett, who finished the game 31 of 46 for 232 yards, averaged 5 yards a pass, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, had a 68.4 passer rating, and it was, by all means, his worst performance as a Pittsburgh Steeler. And this dates all the way back to last season when he took over in Week 4 against the New York Jets, had his first start against the Buffalo Bills, a team that was red hot and that you could easily acknowledge he should not have been playing against in his first start. We talked about it the whole time, the whole ramp up and the whole end of Mitch Trubisky. You saw the writing on the wall. The Pittsburgh Steelers were going to pull Mitch Trubisky and they were going to pull Kenny, or they were going to put Kenny Pickett in, but you didn't know when. And all you kept preaching was, please do not do it during the Jets game. Do it before the Jets game so that he has a full start under his belt before you go up against the Buffalo Bills. They didn't listen. They threw him into the fire. They said, hey, if you're going to run with Wolves, you're going to have to fight them in your first start, Week 1 start. I guess it was Week 5, but his Week 1 start. And he got demolished, and he looked terrible. And the Steelers looked terrible. And it was their worst loss, maybe, unless you consider the Philadelphia Eagles game their worst loss of the season. And he thought, well, it's only going to go up from here. That's all we talked about. It's only going to go up from here. Kenny Pickett's going to adjust. The offense is going to get better. There's going to be some chemistry. There's going to be some flow. Mike Tomlin and Matt Canada, they're going to get things together. Kenny Pickett's going to calm down. Everything's going to be good. Kenny Pickett's going to be fine. The Steelers are going to be fine. This season was different. This offseason was all about the Super Bowl hype. The Pittsburgh Steelers are that team. They are real. They are dangerous. They are already a playoff team. We just have to see if they can be a Super Bowl team. Kenny Pickett said it before the game. This is a Super Bowl or bust season. Deontay Johnson said this is a Super Bowl or bust season. The expectations were through the roof. And it took 5 drives maybe before you've given up all those hopes. And you started to question how bad Kenny Pickett is, if you should start to worry about Kenny Pickett, and whether or not he should be and is the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm here to say Kenny Pickett looked terrible. And by all means, I have no answers to why he looked terrible. He was inaccurate. He looked rattled. He had zero pocket presence. His offense actually looked pretty good. The play calling was fine. The offensive line was rough, but there were a lot of opportunities for him to make a play. His wide receivers were open a lot of the time. He had playmakers like Calvin Austin, who were open almost all the time. Deontay Johnson was doing his thing. He had one-on-one opportunities with George Pickens. Pat Freiermuth was open. Najee Harris averaged 5.2 yards a carry, and I get it. It was only 6 rushes, but still 5.2 yards a carry. That's huge. There's no explanation of why Kenny Pickett looked this bad outside of Kenny Pickett. It was all Kenny Pickett. But all you heard after the game, you go to the locker room, and all anybody's talking about is, well, there was good. We're going to get better. We're going to grow from this. We're going to grow. It's about next week. This is only week 1. A 30-9 loss or a 30-7 loss means nothing in week 1. We will get better. We're not worried about it. We're not worried. We're going to get better. That's all you heard in the locker room. Everything's going to be fine. There were so many opportunities that we weren't able to connect on. Everything's going to be fine. I'm here to tell you that the Pittsburgh Steelers probably will be fine. That I think that Kenny Pickett will be fine too. And I think week 2 will be a huge improvement from week 1. And I could be totally wrong. And if I am totally wrong, there is major concerns about Kenny Pickett. And it is time to start talking about whether or not he is the guy or if the Pittsburgh Steelers totally whiffed on their next quarterback. And in the NFL, chances are you're going to whiff on your next quarterback. And just like we break down every life cycle of the NFL and we try to explain and everybody is in agreement at times that the Pittsburgh Steelers have to go through these things, whiffing on a quarterback after your Hall of Fame quarterback retires happens all the time. Pretty consistently, pretty frequently. Pretty sure every NFL team's done it. It is nearly impossible to go from Hall of Fame quarterback to Hall of Fame quarterback. But I'm not ruling Kenny Pickett out. I'm not ruling the Pittsburgh Steelers out of being a playoff team or having a winning season or whatever your bar was for this team. I might rule them out of the Super Bowl right now, but I still think that their 2 to 3 year window is very much so open, even if it's not this season. What I will say is this. Kenny Pickett struggled. Kenny Pickett looked terrible in all aspects. But Kenny Pickett's looked really good at times against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense that I still think looks good. I thought they struggled against the 49ers, but I also thought that the defense was on the field way too much, that their front seven looked very good, and that their secondary at times looked okay, but at times looked very lost. But overall, I wouldn't say that the defense is a part that's going to lose the Steelers games. The offense is. Kenny Pickett is, which is something you wouldn't have said about Kenny Pickett coming into the season. But he's looked good during the summer. He looked good during preseason. And he looked good against the Buffalo Bills defense that was full of starters that will probably be a team that is on the rise this season and that is a contender once again this season. I'll also say that week one offers a lot of wonkiness. That week one is a mystery that the NFL can never figure it out. And you want to know how I know I'm right? Because all anybody talks about, and if you're not one of these guys, and if you're not one of these people that loses your bets in week one, and you could sit around and be like, well, I knew everything, and I went 5-0 on my bets, and my parlays hit the whole time, and what are you talking about? Well, good for you. But the majority of us, we walk away from week one going, man, didn't see the Cincinnati Bengals getting blown out by the Cleveland Browns. Didn't see the Minnesota Vikings losing at all. Didn't see the Arizona Cardinals making it a game or the Jacksonville Jaguars struggling against the Indianapolis Colts. Didn't see any of it. And we didn't see Kenny Pickett struggling either. Doesn't mean that his season's over. It means that he has things to identify that he needs to work on. He's got to improve that accuracy. But I think that accuracy comes with his vision. I think his timing's off. I don't think it's necessarily a accuracy thing most of the time, although that Deontay Johnson pass where he could have walked into the end zone probably falls into that category. But besides that, I think a lot of it was Kenny was either rattled mentally or was just a split second too late on making his decision, and he regretted that decision as he was throwing the football. I think those are all fixable things, but I don't know how they get fixed. That's on Kenny Pickett. I'm not here to sit around and say, oh, well, they'll be just fine. The Steelers are going to be okay. Kenny Pickett's going to be okay. I'm here to tell you exactly what I saw and what I heard. And what I saw was Kenny Pickett struggling in all aspects. What I heard was that everything was going to be okay. So I'll spread the message. I think everything is going to be okay. I don't know how. I don't know how quickly. And if it happens against the Cleveland Browns, I'm not going to use the Cincinnati Bengals got blown out by them too as an excuse to feel optimistic. I'm going to stress and I'm going to worry and I'm going to come on here and I'm going to tell you that you should probably be worried too and that the Steelers should most definitely be worried too. But leaving week one, I'll chalk it up to wonkiness. I'll chalk it up to the San Francisco 49ers being possibly the best team in football. I think right now on paper probably look like the best team on football. I underestimated the 49ers completely. Did not see this coming at all. But they look good at every phase. And their fans travel, man. Acrisure Stadium kind of felt like an away game, and it was wild. Never seen so many away jerseys at a game in my life. But they did it. So chalk it up to all that. Identify that Kenny Pickett, he's got to get better on his accuracy immediately. And he looked good in the preseason with accuracy. So it comes and goes. It is there. It's not always gone. He's not an inaccurate quarterback. He was inaccurate in this game. You have to chalk it up to mental awareness. You worked all summer long on staying in the pocket. You worked all summer long on having pocket presence so that you could avoid hits and step up. And you did it in the preseason, and you showed it time and time again that you could do those things. The ability is there. He showcased that. Didn't happen in week 1. And for some reason, man, you got to get unrattled. Kenny Pickett, all of the end of last year, Kenny Pickett wasn't rattled. All throughout the summer, Kenny Pickett wasn't rattled. All anybody told us all throughout training camp and all throughout the preseason, and when he got named captain, was Kenny Pickett is confident, man. He is as confident as they come. So it's there. It just wasn't there in week 1. And again, I'm going to just chalk that up to week 1. I'm not going to make an excuse. I'm not going to say that it wasn't a terrible performance, because it was his worst performance as a Pittsburgh Steeler. But week 1, it's as fickle as it gets, and it is mysterious as it gets. And the Steelers underestimated the 49ers heavily, and so did all of us. Came back to bite them in the butt. Came back to show that Kenny Pickett, he's probably not going to win MVP this season, but he could work on these things, and he's shown that he's capable of doing these things. It's all about putting it on the field. Week 2 is going to tell us a lot. Week 1 told us what needs to be worked on.